James Hetfield is sitting in with us tonight. Speaking of like pleasing your fans and always fired.
You know, after seeing that video, I seem rather calm on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like,
one of the Earth's greatest warriors has vanished in a blinding flash of light, having made the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of his loved ones. A proud Saiyan prince.
you ever take a look at the rules of engagement for the US Army? It's a quick read, you can almost fit it all on a little index card. And politely, what it says, when not at war. But basically, before you can fire a lethal shot, they legitimately first put up a warning shot, give the command, give a cease and command order, fire a warning shot, confirm that there's actually contact, determine if the safety of your crew and civilians around you are at risk before you start a firefight, and basically receive instructions to defend yourself. You know what it takes for you to be shot in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 2016 in America? Basically, verbatim this. That's right, if an officer is even just a little bit afraid, they've been told to take zero risk with their lives and protect themselves using lethal force. Isn't that strange that we travel countries thousands of miles away from here and we give them more respect than we give the people who live right here in America? But you come over here in America, you shoot a black man, they give you a vacation. Paid vacation. They have the testicular fortitude to say that. We're gonna put you on paid leave. That happens nowhere else in the country. If you go into the doctor because you have a stomach flu and he ends up doing brain surgery and kills you, he doesn't get paid vacations. If you go and buy a car and it explodes the moment you get off a lot, you don't get paid vacation as a dealer. Any profession in the world. Think about it. This is the only place in the world where an officer can kill someone and get a paid vacation for it. I think it's time for us to stop praying. I think it's time for us to stop protesting. I think it's time for us to stop pretending like things are gonna get better. I think it's time for us to start protecting ourselves, because let's be honest, if you ever hear about me getting shot by an officer, just know I didn't die alone. So I have a very, very important question to ask you. When you're confronted by an officer next time, what you gonna do? This is a very real situation we're dealing with, because let's go down the list of everyone they've killed so far. So far we have a pastor, we have a hustler, we have a few kids, we have a lady smoking a cigarette, we have a person that takes care of mentally challenged kids, we have a person who was mentally challenged, we had someone who was trying to commit suicide, we had a person who put his hands up in the air and did absolutely nothing. We also have a girl who clearly had some mental issues but had her door basically busted down and was shot upon several times while her child was in the room. Those are 10 categories of people that have been shot by officers. How many more people have to go before you start doing something about it? It is clear that our police are not trained correctly. You mean to tell me somebody who doesn't even have a bachelor's degree should have the ability to go out and make life and death decisions for people like me who have a master's degree, almost doctorate degree? You mean to tell me we send people to law school for 4 extra years, sometimes 8, and they don't even get to make life and death decisions, but someone who doesn't even have a bachelor's degree can decide for me? You mean to tell me that a person who willingly admitted that they are a drug user can become a police officer? You mean to tell me you're okay with watching another black person go down and all you can do is put up a Facebook post? You're borderline part of the problem. It's time to bring back community policing. It's time to bring back proper training. It's time to reevaluate who we let protect and serve us. Let's talk about Betty Shelby, shall we? Or should we call her Betty Sanders, which was her maiden name? Oh no, Betty Carlton, which was her maiden name, Betty Sanders, which was her first marriage, and Betty Holycross, which was her second, Shelby, her new last name, which is her third husband. Good to know she gets around. But we're not here to slander. We're only here to state facts. And this is a very interesting fact. She hasn't really done anything eventful in her 42 years of life in Oklahoma. She went to high school in Oklahoma. She worked as a teacher assistant in Oklahoma. She worked at a gas station as a nighttime manager in Oklahoma. She tried to go to school. She made it 2 years as a biology major and dropped out, and eventually decided to go to the Air Force, to which she got hurt in basic training. She hurt her knee. Understandable. But instead of taking the pay cut and being on a post salary of rehabilitation in the National Guard, she decided to drop out and proceeded to apply to TPD, Tulsa Police Department, I believe in 2007. While there, she managed to pick herself up, but on her application, she is admitted to using drugs and being in possession of drugs, also admitting to having a restraining order placed against her, which probably came from one of her two husbands. Her drug problems were serious though, don't let it fool you. In 2011, she took time off to take care of that because it was heavily affecting her ability to work in the police department. Well, I could kind of see that being a problem. You're sending people to jail for the same drugs that you're using. That does seem counterintuitive. I digress. She was actually in charge of training rookies. Can you believe this? She's been given multiple awards. Basically, she's not only involved with the training of the rookies, she wrote the manual for them. She's a field officer and doesn't seem to know how the system works, even though she's a teacher of the system, which further stresses my point. Everything that she's done up until this point, she's thoroughly failed at. School, work, the ability to serve her country. She didn't excel at any of these things, but you know, you can go be a cop because it's not hard to just go out there and harass and abuse people who look different than you. And yes, she has been accused of excessive force twice in her career. Both I couldn't get access to, but that's 2 times, which is 1 time too many. Betty Shelby probably isn't a bad person, but Betty Shelby is definitely unfit to be an officer. Betty Shelby got this job not because she was qualified, but because her husband, David Shelby, who you already know because he's this guy.
That looks like a bad dude too.
Yep, that guy's saying that's a bad dude. That's Dave Shelby, her husband, who went on a tour to Afghanistan and came back with a bunch of honors and medals. And of course, as a good hubby would, he looks out for his wife and gets her a job as a training official at TPD. Unfortunately for TPD, she didn't cap off at just being a trainer. She ended up escalating and moving up the ranks and eventually got on patrol. Deputy Betty Shelby, as I say this now, was unqualified to be a police officer for Tulsa, Oklahoma, and for the United States of America. Terrence Crutcher is a pastor, father of 4, twin brother. He was going back to school to get his degree. He helps gangbangers get off the street and find them local jobs when no one else will hire them. Terrence Crutcher is guilty of one thing, and that is waking up thinking the Tulsa Police Department was out to protect him. Imagine this. So let's paint the setting. Betty Shelby was being called out for a whole different case. That's right. If Betty Shelby took a different road to get to the case that she was going to, she would have never ran into Terrence Crutcher. Terrence Crutcher would not have died. But the fact is, she didn't, and they crossed paths. Betty Shelby's been called out for backup for another case, meaning her adrenaline, her blood is pumping. Oh yes, I've been called out as backup. It's go time. That's what she's thinking right then and there. She's trigger happy at that point. To her dismay, there's this poor black man in the road and he's blocking my way. He's preventing me from getting to the action. He's preventing me. That was her thought process. First question you should be asking is, what is going on here? But I guarantee you that's not what she asked because she's in go mode. So her thing was, get out of the way. You're interfering with police actions. See, Terrence Crutcher wasn't being aggressive or being volatile. He was merely confused because when he saw the police lights, he assumed that they were there to help him. He was so sadly mistaken because she was thinking, you're obstructing the law right now. Sir, I need you to get in your vehicle and move it aside. To which he then probably walked up to her trying to explain, well, my car isn't working. I need help. Could you help me? To which she took a man coming up to her with his hands out doing this as this. This is what she saw. She saw a 6'2", 310-pound man walking towards her, asking a array of questions with a disarrayed look on his face, and she took that as a threat. And imagine this. The pastor has to be thoroughly confused, following her instructions, which are, put your hands up now, as he's walking to his car. Now, the reason why he's walking to his car is unclear to me. He could be walking to his car because she instructed him to put his hands on the car, because he seems to lean against the vehicle as if to see where his hands are at all time. Or she could have instructed him to get back into his car while she told him to stand down, to which I don't know what any of those commands have to do with anything if her command was simply to get on the ground. 3 more officers show up, and without even knowing what's going on, this officer tases Terrence within 30 seconds of leaving his vehicle. This has to change. This method can't be accurate. This can't be something that happens. If an officer shows up with 2 more officers, the officer who just showed up can't be the first person to fire. I'm sorry. You don't know what's going on. And from that instinct, the officer fires, and it causes a chain reaction and causes Shelby to fire as well, because she's already jittery and finger on the trigger. Shelby would not have fired until she was given a reason, until she felt threatened. She couldn't have feared for her life, because she clearly is walking towards him as he's walking away. You can't be afraid of something and walk towards it. You fall back and request backup. That is logical, but that's not what happens. So every time I hear something about someone being afraid, I ask them, what is your definition of fear? Because if I'm afraid of something, there's no way in hell I'm following it. Why was Officer Shelby's first to grab her gun instead of a taser? What type of incident could have happened because her lawyer, who is a scumbag of the earth, is claiming she had been instructing him for 20 minutes? And it's clear that she lied on her own police report, because when we got that video, it implicates that she's lying. We see his hands clearly up in the air after he gets tasered and seconds after he gets shot. And then once again, we proceed to do the most inhumane thing after shooting somebody. Instead of performing CPR, or we handcuff him and watch him basically die in his own pool of blood. Like I said, Terrence Crutcher, he was a pastor. He brought the word of God. Too bad Betty Shelby was not listening. Everybody who criticized Colin Kaepernick better comment on this video. I'm going to start calling people out. I'm going to start calling people out on Facebook, Twitter, friends, family, enemies, ex-girlfriends, girlfriends, boos, bays. It doesn't matter. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to ask you to go support ETO. And I'm going to keep bothering you about it until you either unfriend me, block me, or just go do it. Because this is a very real question. Let's even take a closer look at the way she calls out shots have been fired. Now, she says this.
Shots fired!
Painfully clear in her voice that is not something that she wanted to happen. She's terrified now. You wanna know why? Because reality is just set in. She pulled her gun out and accidentally fired it. But I bet you within a few days, the story's gonna come out saying that she meant to use her taser. How much you wanna bet? This is a message from future heroes saying that I was right. That's all I wanted. I guess I could give you guys some advice. You know, a really famous artist once said something to me, and it really didn't resonate with me when I was first hearing it, because I never experienced anything that would make me think that these words actually meant something. But as I grew older and I watched him pass away, I heard him say these very words, and now, more than ever, it's become painfully clear to me what he was trying to say.